Hi!
Hello.
Welcome to Swipe for More, the podcast for media comm students exploring key media issues to help you swipe your way to success. Together we are 4 budding media and communication students studying at QUT. As part of Brisbane Media Map, we contribute our insights and views to the podcast Swipe for More, where we delve into themes and issues in the media world that we've heard of but want to dissect and learn about from a variety of views.
This is our first of 3 podcasts for the semester, so allow us to introduce ourselves. My name's Louise and I'm currently studying a double degree in business and media comms, and I major in advertising. This is my 4th year, so I'm coming up to the end. And I have a really unhealthy relationship with YouTube. My search history probably makes me look like I'm a sociopath or a criminal, but I just love finding controversial content and just falling down rabbit holes.
Love that. Well, hi, I'm Julia. I'm 4th year as well, but I do media communications and law. Super fun. I'm a general podcast fan and enthusiast, and I love a good chat and a good argument, so hopefully we get to do both today.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm also a media communications student and business degree student at QUT in my final year, thank goodness. And I love cheese boards. They're just great.
That is a good passion. Love that.
That's about it for me.
Alright, well, I'm Taylor. I'm also in my final year of a double degree in media communication and public relations. So basically what that means is I love talking, I love reading communication, I love all that stuff, but I really love Spotify playlists. I don't know what it is about it, but new playlist every day, you know? So basically, we're always online. That's what we've learnt from this. So each week we're going to be delving into some potentially controversial different media and communication concepts. But before we do that, let's just talk about what we've been seeing in the media this week. Julia, any swipe rights?
Okay, so what I'm swiping right on this week, and I'm going to expose myself for being extremely lowbrow, but you know, hey, it's a big part of Australian media at the moment. So what I'm swiping right on is Married at First Sight. Is anyone else watching?
Yes.
Oh, Elizabeth says no. You have to get onto it. Final week. Just do
Never
it.
too
Commit.
late.
Just got to catch up with 7 weeks of it. You'll be right. So it is in its final week at the moment, and I've committed way more time than I'd like to admit into watching these people pretend to be married. But it is wild. And I do like watching it because I do feel a connection to everyone else watching it, which I think is kind of a big part of the population at the moment. Everyone's chatting, tagging, sharing memes. And I think it's kind of bringing people together. So maybe I'm over-romanticizing what Married at First Sight is doing for Australian culture. Maybe it is just a trashy reality show, but it's a big swipe right for me at the moment. Elizabeth, what are you swiping right on?
I've been swiping through Hailey and Justin Bieber's Instagram, and with April Fool's Day just passed, Justin actually posted a picture of an ultrasound giving off the impression that him and Hailey are having a baby. And at first I was like, oh my god, and then I was like, oh, it's the 1st of April. yeah, right. And it was like a full-grown baby, so it was just...
They got you good.
Yeah. I know. But yeah, he had to make an apology about it though, because apparently it was too insensitive, but I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny.
I think that's a good April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
It's more funny if people believe it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
do
anyway,
that all the
I
time.
just think they're so aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, they'll have good babies.
Definitely. Well, my favourite media story I saw this week. Did anyone see the video of that baby saying Google?
No, I haven't seen it.
Alright, well, it's this really cute viral video. It's like just a baby monitor, completely unexpected, but this dad is like, hey Google, play this lullaby. And the baby just immediately responds with Google, and it's this baby's first words. The parents are just like, what? This video, it's gone viral. Everyone's basically saying how cute it is, but then there's another side that's saying, this is what society has come, where babies are saying Google before they're saying mama and dada, and it's just crazy. It's like, kind of PR things like this, normally the company would get involved, but in this, I think Google's just like, maybe not.
Yeah.
We don't want to be the cause of babies saying Google.
It'd be funny if it was guerrilla marketing or something,
Yeah.
you know, the baby was a plant. They have anything new on the market soon? Maybe.
Oh my gosh. So,
Louise,
What about you,
your
Louise?
turn.
Well, I went and saw the Book of Mormon last week.
Yes,
Have any of you guys seen it?
I've seen it twice. I loved it. I thought
I
it was so
loved
good.
it too.
I haven't
You
yet.
haven't seen it. So what did you guys loved it?
Yeah, I thought it was
Yeah.
really good.
Well, my friends and I actually left after the first act.
What? Why?
Well, we felt that the whole premise of the musical was like kind of insensitive, considering the issues they were poking fun of are very real, and there are communities and cultures that are really struggling with issues such as like AIDS, domestic abuse, and like African warlords. And I guess we were just really shocked that a musical that was so well received by critics and audiences won like 9 Tonys or something nuts like that. And we just couldn't believe that it was just filled with all these innuendos and jokes and all that. So, yeah.
That's really interesting. I haven't heard people kind of think about it in that way. Like, obviously it's very controversial, but that kind of is the appeal of it, but I haven't seen anyone really look at it, that
Yeah.
intensely.
I think the thing is, like, Book of Mormon was made by the same people as South Park, and South Park
Yeah.
is super controversial, but it's popular. It's been running for 22 seasons, and people love it. So people do love this kind of humor, I guess, this very satirical kind of humor, but I get your point, Louise.
Yeah, so I guess, like, one thing that really shocked me about this is that I know lots of people and lots of my friends had seen this musical and they had absolutely loved it. But these friends I know are very active about voicing their opinions about discrimination and lots of the other issues that were addressed in the Book of Mormon. But yet they had no problem with paying like $150 to like sit in a fancy theatre and watch a musical that like encourages audiences to like laugh at Ugandan villages with AIDS. So yeah.
I guess it is pretty hypocritical if you look at it that way.
Well, moving on, our first topic for our podcast this season is virtue signalling. And we decided to look at this topic because it is a buzzword that has been floating around for a while now. And all of us here have heard of it before, but we never exactly knew where it applies and what it really means. However, we all agree that it is relevant to the media communication industry, especially in social media. So the term virtue signalling was first coined in an article in The Spectator by James Bartholomew in 2015, where he wrote, "Virtue signalling, indicating that you are kind, decent and virtuous, but no one actually has to do anything. Virtue comes from mere words or even from silently held beliefs. However, there was once a time in the distant past where people thought you could only be virtuous by actually doing things." So this is where the phenomenon was first given like a term, and since then it's been used to criticize companies, celebrities and social media usage. And I think, out of all things, the Urban Dictionary kind of puts it best.
They always do.
Oh, sometimes. So it's sort of to take a conspicuous but essentially useless action ostensibly to support a good cause, but actually to show off how much more moral you are than everybody else. So our aim of the discussion today is to sort of explore this term in different areas and sort of discuss where we think it is virtue signalling and where it may not actually be virtue signalling, through social media usage, how companies might use it, and celebrities as well. And then from our discussion and our sort of conclusions that we form from our different views, we'll have 3 takeaways of that.
Yeah, so like I guess linking back to Book of Mormon, something, like I said before, something that really shocked me is that I know lots of people that are very active on social media and are very much keyboard warriors, for lack of better words. And, you know, they love to talk about issues and they love to really, I guess, what's the word? Oh my gosh. They love to really Oh my god.
Sort of like
So-
vent, but not really.
vent. Yeah. Debate.
Debate.
Yeah, they love to debate.
Cut that bit out. They love to debate about things, and they love to just sit there behind their laptops and type stuff out. But I guess, is this virtue signaling?
Yeah, I guess the whole idea comes down to, words without action. Saying what you think or maybe what you believe is right, but kind of more as a performance for other people to see
Yeah.
rather than showing what your true intentions are.
Yeah, so I guess also maybe from a social media perspective could be like the Facebook filters that people put up after an incident or something to show their support. And I guess the way you take it really just depends on that person's intentions behind it, whether they're doing it for an image, for the likes, or whether they actually fully support the idea.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of virtue signaling because it's so easy to do, it takes nothing. You're not actually making an effort. I mean, obviously you could have the intention behind it, but I think for the most part, you're doing it and people like it, so you feel good about yourself rather than doing something to actually help the cause, which from my understanding is what virtue signaling is.
But I think sometimes it can be doing something to the cause. Like, a lot of people change those Facebook banners for, they change them for these different issues, but it's not doing anything. But for example, New Zealand's Kiwi Bank, they ran a campaign for a mental health organisation called I Am Hope, where for every person who changed their banner to I Am Hope, they were donating $1 to this organisation. And they ended up raising over 150,000 people changed their banners. And their original limit was going to be 20,000, but they've now donated over $100,000 to this mental health organisation. So even though these people are just changing their Facebook banners, it's actually doing something.
That's so cool. I
Yeah.
didn't even know that you could, monetize it in that way.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
I think that definitely changes the way you could perceive it. Because, it's not just for likes. You actually are doing something for charity.
Yeah.
It could. It's unfortunate that virtue signaling has such a negative connotation when there can be positives around those kind of actions.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I guess something we need to consider is that each sort of case is different and it all depends on the intention, the truthful intention behind the signal, I guess.
It reminds me of that ice bucket challenge as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I kind of became aware of what virtue signaling is. Or even, I probably didn't understand it, but I think that seeing people post something that was meant to be charitable, was meant to be raising awareness for an issue, but I definitely saw it become more of an effort to, get likes or grow on social media. It left this sort of
definitely.
bad taste in my mouth that, people didn't actually care what they were posting about. They were just posting for the sake of posting.
They were.
So I think in that kind of way, that was a big example of virtue signaling, which I know a lot of people talk about, where, the intention isn't true and people are just posting to look good rather than do
Exactly.
something that they actually believe in.
Yeah, there was a point where people were just uploading those ice bucket challenge videos and they didn't even realize that it had a backstory where people were actually trying to raise money. It was just funny.
It was just like everyone was doing it. It was like, dog filters on Snapchat. Everyone did it. So
Jump on that
everyone did it.
bandwagon.
Yeah.
God, imagine how much money they would have raised if they could monetize Snapchat dog filters.
RSPCA, get
A
on it.
But the ice bucket challenge is funny because I do think that, but then, maybe I'm talking in circles. I think the more that I've researched virtue signaling, the more that I see it as kind of this whole topic that you can really argue both sides. Because, even though I thought at the time that, it's bad that people were trivializing an issue and kind of being performative about the way that they use charity. If you think about it, I think I looked it up and they raised $98.2 million that year for ALS.
Wow.
The year before they only raised $2 million. And if you're a person that's suffering from the disease, you would be overjoyed to see so much awareness raised, so many people caring about what you're going through. And at the end of the day, it is just fun. So, maybe it's not so malicious as the way that I was thinking about it. It is more just people trying to do what they can to do better. Does anyone else, you know,
Yeah.
think
I
that way
definitely
or think that
agree.
it's more virtue signaling?
I think one of the key things that you can kind of define whether it's virtue signaling or not is the scale of the platform. Like, some of these people posting these ice bucket challenge videos were just doing it for the sake of their friends and family on Facebook and social
definitely.
media. But then there's people like proper media personalities with huge followings who are doing things that can be considered virtue signaling, and they're kind of getting attacked for it.
Yeah. But do you think that's better or worse? Like, I sometimes think that, in my opinion, it's worse if you don't have a following because you are just kind of posting into a void. You know, if I was to go on a big rant about how I feel about a certain topic and post on my Facebook, you know, only so many people are going to see it. It's not going to do anything, really. It's just going to sit there on Facebook.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons we do it personally to such a smaller scale is not so people think that we support this issue. It's so people don't think that we don't support it.
Yeah, that's such a
It's-
good point.
Silence can be deadly.
Yeah, that's so true.
And you definitely see this with, like, famous people. Like, it happened to Taylor Swift. It's probably happened to Selena Gomez. Like, they're stuck in this lose-lose situation where if they talk about something, they get in trouble. But if they don't say anything, they get in trouble for their silence. And, like, it's just so... The whole idea of it can sometimes just be so contradictory, and it's based on, you know, contradiction. And, yeah, it's like Pandora's box. You could argue until you're, like, blue in the face.
And I guess if you do have a big following, you would always have to decide, you know, is saying something better than saying nothing? What if you have to lie to align yourself with a certain school of thought, even though you didn't particularly believe it, but that's what people expected of you? Or, you know, are you saying something with the right intention? Are you saying something without the right intention? Or just to be heard and to appeal to people? It'd be very tricky. I'm glad I don't have a lot of followers.
Yeah.
It just, you know,
Definitely. Like,
be a fine line.
we've seen recently Anne Hathaway get attacked for it.
What did she do?
Poor girl got dragged.
Well, so it was in, I think, 2018, so last year.
Yeah.
A black woman by the name of Nia Wilson, she was just killed by, like, terrible. She was murdered by this man a white man, and it was this big ordeal, and then, like, very sad, very tragic. Shouldn't happen to anyone. And Anne Hathaway posted about it on Twitter, which she got a lot of backlash for. So she basically condoned the action like anyone would, but then sort of went on about how white people should reflect on their white privilege, quote unquote. And I think a lot of people that rubbed some people the wrong way because it was a bit misguided in their eyes. And then some people would probably call that out for virtue signaling.
Yeah.
What do we think?
I don't know. It totally depends on the perspective. And I know this is kind of the issue that we're dealing with, but, you know, does she actually believe these things? Is she
Yeah.
posting it to appeal to her followers and so that they think that she's a good person? From what I heard about it, it did, regardless of the subject matter, it did kind of sound like it came from a genuine place. I think Anne Hathaway has a bit of a history of being an activist, so maybe it is something that she is kind of involved in or believes in.
Like, she does have this huge following, and in a way it's raising awareness for this issue, but is that enough? Like, when she has, like, this girl is famous, she's got money, should she be doing something more than just attacking white people?
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the criticisms of virtue signaling come from, because, you know, if you post about something, sure, that's reaching an audience, but, you know, what else are you doing if you have that position of power? Maybe words aren't enough. Maybe she should show that she's donating something, show that she's going out to communities that need help and helping them.
Yeah, I find this one difficult to make a case for virtue signaling because even though a lot of people took it as her statements about white people having to reflect on our privilege
Yeah.
or whatever, you know, what she's saying, that can come across virtue signaling, but I don't think it is. Like, just because it's misguided, I don't think that's virtue signaling, because, like, she can think that, but I don't think she's trying to make, like, an empty image out of it, though.
No.
I mean, some people could argue that she's an actress, she should just stick to acting. Like, what does she know about that culture in depth and, like, the, you know, the real complexities of the issue of, like,
Racism
and deaths in that community.
Yeah.
It's kind of a debate that could go back and forth all day.
Yeah. So this one I'm kind of stuck on, because I don't think it is. I just think it's just misguided.
Yeah, I think I'm more on the side of it not being virtue signaling, because, you know, we can't get too critical of what people are saying and how they're saying it, because if we do get too critical, maybe we're just becoming thought police of stopping people from just saying what they think. And, you know, with that kind of rhetoric of, you know, celebrities can't speak out, or, you know, even regular people can't speak out on issues, then, you know, you get someone tweeting something as simple as racism is bad, and then we could tear that apart for virtue signaling. But, you know, everyone believes that, as if that's not going to be a truth.
Because I think for this case to be virtue signaling would have to be if Anne Hathaway then goes and does something that flies in the face of what she's saying. So if she was like, if she was racist or something, then this would count as virtue signaling.
Yeah, because she's just trying to get people to believe something about her.
But obviously she's not, and everyone knows that. I think, yeah, you have to be doing something that contradicts maybe what you're saying.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Because I don't think she's saying that for people to think differently about her. I think she genuinely is believing what she's saying. And kind of what it comes down to is maybe for virtue signaling, your actions should speak louder than your words. But then maybe if you are someone who has a platform, kind of using your words carefully can be an action in itself.
Definitely.
It's true. What about this other example? I'm sure this is one that everyone has seen. J.K. Rowling coming out and adding to the Harry Potter canon, saying things like Dumbledore and Grindelwald were gay, Hermione is now black. Do we think that's virtue signaling?
I think so. I'll be honest, I don't know too much about it. I definitely do see the headlines. I follow her on Twitter, but I don't read everything she says. But I think would be such an easy way to virtue signal, because she's written some whole works in the past, and now she can kind of go back and say anything that's gonna, you know, please every sort of audience.
Yeah, definitely. And like, it's hard, because I kind of see it as, if she wanted that to be known, why didn't she write it in the books in the first place?
Yeah.
Why didn't she weave it into the stories and like the descriptions of the characters? Why is it now, like, I don't even know when Harry Potter was written, but it was like heaps of years ago.
Yeah,
We're talking 90s.
Yeah, it was written in the good old 90s.
Good old 90s.
And like, if that was what she wanted the characters to be like, why didn't she just write them like that in the first place? I don't know.
I think it's caused more drama than it's worth. Like, when Cursed Child was announced and the casting was announced, that's when Hermione, like, they casted a black actress as Hermione, which was great, whatever, like, Hermione can be black, that's fine, but the way that J.K. Rowling came out and was like, no, she is black, she was always black, I never specified that she was white, when she did. There is literally a quote in the book that says, like, Hermione's white skin, such and such.
Just double back.
That one really seems like virtue signaling to me.
Yeah.
I think so. But then again, I mean, you can always argue it back to intention. I mean, it does sound like what she's saying is wrong, because, as you said, there's a quote in the book that says she was white. But, you know, was she doing that to appease an audience, or was she doing that because that's something she genuinely wanted herself? What was her intention behind it, you know?
And I think another thing is like, our culture has changed so much, even within the last 5-10 years. Think of how, like, far movements like the gay rights movement, even feminism and, like, you know, discrimination and all that jazz has come so far in the past 10 years. We don't know that maybe J.K. Rowling originally pitched her as a black actress,
That's so true.
black character, but then maybe their editors were like, maybe not. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I could be reading way into this, but...
No, I think that's a good
dunno.
point. I mean, context matters, you know.
That's really true.
Yeah, well, I think if you haven't read the tweet, it says, canon, brown eyes, frizzy hair, and very clever. White skin was never specified. Rowling loves black Hermione. And then, like, a kiss emoji. And I just think the way it's tweeted, it's kind of can come across the wrong way as, like it matters that Hermione should be black.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think... If she didn't specify it in the first place, why specify it now?
Yeah, that's so true.
Like, I'm sure if this is her thought on it that, like, race doesn't matter, then why, like, go out of your way to make it clear that Hermione's black, like, if it doesn't matter what race you are?
Yeah, that's so
But in a way,
true.
I find, like, it's sort of playing into identity politics that, like, it's going into, like, well, you have to have a black Hermione and you got to have all this sort of diversity, but then you can go on and say, well, it doesn't matter, so it should just be what it is and what you read in the book. And that's why she didn't specify anyone's. Only, like, that they have frizzy hair or whatever. It could mean anything.
So do you guys think that the J.K. Rowling would be more virtue signalling than the Anne Hathaway example?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely not on the fence about this one. I'm pretty confident that this is, like, virtue signalling, because it just kind of came out of nowhere, if that makes sense. There was no, like, build up. It was just like, hey guys, I think she's a different race. Like, yeah.
I think definitely she's gotten more out of control now. It seems like every week there's a new addition to what we didn't know about Harry Potter.
I think that even though this is, like, kind of a controversial example, it gets even more controversial when it's corporations doing that.
Yes, definitely.
People who regularly use their products, things like that, they're getting involved, and people are literally boycotting products because of things like this.
So we did have a look at the Gillette ad because if you've missed it, you've been living under a rock.
Yeah.
This ad has caused so much
Gillette.
debate and division about its agenda on toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Basically, if you haven't seen the ad, it, like, kind of shows men doing the wrong thing. Well, doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Like, sexual abuse, fighting, things like that. And then it's basically saying that's what young boys are watching, and we kind of need to cut out that toxic masculinity and basically being better role models for these young boys so they grow up to be better men.
Yeah, so people have either taken offence to the ad or they applaud it, and yeah, a lot of people have sort of accused this as virtue signaling. I know Piers Morgan has, but do we think it actually is? I, at first, definitely thought it was, but then after thinking about it and talking about it, I don't think it really counts as virtue signaling. I think what they're doing is they are using their product and their big corporation status to push an agenda and onto people, and then through their product and sort of swayed people to think like that. But I don't, and I think if Gillette wants to make that their brand image and their brand like mission to like change the way their influence on consumer culture has had, then I think whatever, they can do that.
What about the rest of us? Like, I personally don't think it's virtue signaling. What about you?
I'm actually quite on the fence about this one, because on one hand, like, I think that it's really good that Gillette are tackling an issue that I think no one has ever really looked into, or like a big corporation has never really attacked this idea of toxic masculinity. But then I kind of think, why are they doing it? Are they doing it because they actually want to create awareness and they actually want to change a culture? Or are they doing it because they want to sell razors?
Yeah. And I guess we don't really know, but that is kind of what I thought about it. I mean, I don't think that it is virtue signaling, because if you are thinking about virtue signaling as kind of being words without actions, if you're looking at the topic more broadly, this ad is kind of trying to achieve something because it has that call to action at the end. Now, I don't actually know what else Gillette is doing in this kind of space.
Well, they are donating $1 million over the next 3 years to like organisations that they think will help with this toxic masculinity issue.
See, so I think
that
it is
they've
something
sort
that
of
they believe
invented.
in.
Sorry, I don't like the ad one bit, just gonna make that clear, and I don't like their agenda, but I also have come to the conclusion after thinking about that it's not virtue signalling though.
See, I like the ad and kind of agree with what they're saying, but then I think that where else you can see that it's maybe not virtue signaling is because they are going against their consumers. If you're thinking about the ad, it's kind of condemning male behaviour, and the males who they are condemning might be part of their consumer market. So I think that they're not doing something to necessarily appease their audience. They're kind of making a point to go against their audience, which is where it wouldn't be virtue signaling, because although they are speaking to a particular school of thought, it's not really one that's going to necessarily improve their brand. Taylor, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things about this one is that they had more to lose than they had to gain with this.
Definitely.
That's true.
It's not going to get them any more sales. If anything, as we've seen, people are literally boycotting the brand. So I think it wasn't virtue signaling because they wanted to raise awareness on this. They wanted... Their new slogan is, instead of the best a man can get, is the best a man can be. That is what they want to do. They're literally changing their whole brand about it. And I think this is an issue that they really stand behind. They wouldn't have done this whole campaign and risked losing business if they didn't stand behind it.
I think, that's true, because, like, when it comes to businesses, you got to question, like, obviously the ulterior motive is to make money, but then you've also got to think about how you just said, you can tell that they're incorporating this into their brand image and their, like, actual brand beliefs. So, I don't think it counts as virtue signaling.
It would be a big effort if it was just virtue signaling. They had a lot to lose.
That's very true.
My one other thought on it was, whether they were doing it for the right intentions or not. I mean, it is an ad. It could have been the whole strategy was to just cause controversy, want everyone to get riled up and cause a conversation, because, how much have you heard the word Gillette in the last few months?
True, yeah.
And if that was their plan, kind of kudos to them. It was very successful. I don't know if that meant that they sold more products, less products, but certainly the word has gotten out about their brand and everyone has something to say. But I think when it comes to virtue signaling, kind of corporations can really commodify certain ideals.
Definitely.
From my perspective, I think an example of corporations virtue signaling is, like, I walked into a fast fashion store the other day and saw a t-shirt with the word feminist on it. And you kind of think, what are you doing for the movement? You're just purely profiting off this idea that all these people have worked for, fought for, died for in the past. You just kind of slap it on a t-shirt and put a price tag on it.
See, that example I definitely think is virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Or even, like, Coles. Like, but there's the plastic bag ban, even though, I suppose, because it was enforced by law, right? Like, they didn't really have a choice, but...
The law came after,
I
think.
Because, but they still positioned it as though they would... It's better for the environment, bring your own bags, or pay for 15 cents, for 30 cents, whatever it is, for a better bag, as they call it.
Which is still plastic, technically.
So I think, like, Woolworths and Coles, more Coles than Woolies, I think.
Oh, controversial.
Like, having this sort of, like, bag ban, we want to better the environment, bring your own reusable ones. But then they go, we'll hand out these little pre-packaged stickies for your children, which are, like, little plastic things that you'll enjoy for, like, 2 weeks, and then your child will probably lose it, or you have to throw it away, and all the bits of plastic. So I think this is an example of virtue signaling, because they've tried to use this image of this bag ban, but then they're not really standing for the love of the environment, because they're still...
Virtue signaling.
I think one of
Yeah.
the interesting things about how you said virtue signaling is like kind of a new concept. Like Target tried to do that like 10 years ago. They
Yes,
tried
they
to ban
did.
plastic bags. They started charging for plastic bags. But no one was really ready for that movement. I was
No,
like, why
no.
would you be doing that? So eventually they went to just giving away free plastic bags. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they still do, while all these other big companies have gone and changed it. So it's like virtue signaling has become something that people are criticizing more and more as time goes on.
And I think that shows more that Coles and Woolies are kind of virtue signaling because they are reflecting the kind of popular social movement of the time.
Yeah.
When if they actually cared about it, like Target seems
Lots
to
of
have, they could have
things.
started doing it 10 years ago because I'm sure
Yeah.
they had the money, resources, power to
Definitely.
just put a stop to it.
But I think you also need to consider that consumers are a big thing. Like, obviously, they influence brands and companies and stuff like that. And, like, when Target did introduce their 10-cent bags, like, years ago, people were like, yeah, I'm never shopping at Target again. This is terrible. And they were, like, almost cornered into giving out free plastic bags again. So I think, like, yes, there are, like, Coles, I think, is definitely virtue signaling because it was like 1 month they're like, yeah, we're so eco-friendly, and then the next month they're like, here, have free plastic for every $30 you spend. Come spend more here. Whereas it's kind of like, you know, if your consumers are not ready for something yet, can you be really blamed? Is that not the point of a business, is to make money?
Yeah.
And you rely on consumers. So if your consumers aren't ready for something, is it really your fault if you don't implement it?
And I
That's
think-
a whole nother.
Well, that's another critique
Yeah.
of virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Is should these companies even be speaking to, you know, politics and social beliefs, or should they just kind of stick to what they're doing, selling their products? I don't know. That's something else to think about.
I think it kind of ties in with like corporate social responsibility in a way. Like companies do have the need to be corporately responsible, like have corporate social responsibility, especially in this day and age. And the Target example, probably back 10 years ago, that was corporate responsibility, social responsibility, definitely not virtue signaling. But now as we go on, especially with social media growing and growing, it's like, is this company just doing it for attention, or are they actually trying to be socially responsible? I think we could go on and on with this debate, round in circles, but I think we have covered a lot of interesting
we
topics
have.
this week.
Definitely. So we've learned a lot this week. Virtue signaling, yes, it's a real thing, but what actually constitutes as virtue signaling is kind of highly dependent on both the context that it occurs in and the intention behind it. And it's kind of a term that's thrown around a lot in the scope of media, but understanding when it is and when it isn't occurring will really help you become a better media professional.
So we have 3 sort of takeaways from this discussion, and our first one is to be true to yourself. So always consider your message that you want to give out, and if it is truthful, if you can back it up. So question yourself. So does your post or your statement align with your true values and actions, or are you doing it for an image? Like, do they align? If you are virtually signaling, then it is likely that you're being mistruthful in order to create an image. Yeah, so I think it whittles down to you got to have the intentions have to be right.
Definitely.
Jinx. So our second takeaway is critical thinking. So I think with virtue signaling, we've seen that lots of the issues have arisen due to misinformation. So I think if you have an opinion, it's so important that you really sit down and you flesh out all the sides of your opinion, all the sides of the debate, and you really learn what other people think. And when you read something off, say, BuzzFeed, really be critical of that and think, is this true? Do I believe this? Don't just take everything you read at its face value. Really consider it and look at stuff and think, hey, is this virtue signaling? if I believe this, am I going to be virtue signaling? There's just so much that you just need to evaluate. Like Elizabeth said, you are being truthful to yourself, and you're not contradicting yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
I think our third point kind of ties both of that together. Once you've educated yourself, you got to be true to yourself, but just own your own opinion, really. Especially like as young media professionals, there's going to be so many different opinions floating around, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because debate is healthy. Friendly debate, as we've listened to for the last 40 minutes, it's a good thing.
Definitely.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed our first episode of Swipe for More.
Yay!
It's been a learning experience for all of us. But
For sure.
I'm sure next episode, we will have plenty of new debates for you all to listen to. So,
Thank you for listening to our first podcast. Thank you for listening to us babbling on for 40 minutes about one topic.
well, welcome to the end. Thank you so much.
Please swipe for more.
Bye.
Bye.